accepted, challenge accepted. The attitude is always challenge accepted. Challenge accepted, challenge accepted. The attitude is always challenge accepted.
And now, hold on to your seats because we are about to bring out someone huge. It's like bringing Boni M to the stage in the 80s, and maybe it's even bigger.
Yes, because that's not Boni M. He is Boni García, the guy who made WebDriver Manager. If you've ever run an automated test without the hassle of manually setting up a browser driver, you've got Boni
García
to thank.
Boni
García
is teaching at Universidad Carlos III de Madrid, and he's written books like Mastering Software Testing with JUnit 5 and Hands-on Selenium WebDriver with Java.
Basically, whatever test automation you're doing, Boni
García
has probably already written the book on it.
Today, he's going to blow your minds with the road of Selenium 5.
So buckle up, folks, because this isn't just a talk. It's a glimpse into the future of test automation. Give a massive QA challenge accepted welcome to the one and only Boni!
Challenge accepted.
Thank you very much for such a great introduction. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Boni García. I'm presenting Selenium 5. And I'm starting with a very simple question. What is Selenium, right? I know you know the answer because, as everyone knows, Selenium is a chemical element, right? Yeah, it's very useful for us. Chemical? Wait, we are not chemical, right? We are developers, we are QA, so Selenium for us is a different stuff, right? And I have to say this is not a rhetorical question. I actually want to discover what for you people here think about what is Selenium. And if you want, you can scan this code and make a little experiment to discover what is for you Selenium. So please use your mobile to go to that page. Let me change this. Yeah, people system voting in this exercise, so this experiment, 50%. And in a minute, I'm going to show you what you think about what is Selenium. I think we can start taking a look to your answers. Yeah, let's do it. Browser automation tool, it's in the big place. Web automation tool, helper, tool for, it's difficult to read. But yeah, browser tool testing is also big. Browser automation, powerful tool, all tech. Okay, yeah, you are in the right track, right? Selenium is for browsers, right? Let's go back to the slides. Here. And since maybe because I work as a professor at university, I'm going to give my own definition of Selenium. Selenium for me, it's a multi-language browser automation library, right? It's 20 years already. Next month is the birthday. This beautiful t-shirt, it's about the 20th birthday of Selenium. And yeah, it's multi-language, officially supported in Java, JavaScript, Python, .NET, and Ruby. You can select whatever you prefer to automate browsers. And which browser you can automate? Well, any browser which is compliant with the W3C WebDriver specification. This is a protocol which is, I'm going to explain in a minute because maybe most of people that use Selenium does not go deeper in the details of the architecture. But for a deep understanding of Selenium, I'm going to explain what is this protocol in a couple of slides. So currently, there is version 4.25. This week, in fact, it was released. And what happened with Selenium 5? Because this talk is about Selenium 5. Well, Selenium 5 is on the road. It's not completely, of course, it's not released. There is not even a release date, because Selenium, as you probably know, it's a completely open source project, and the people working for Selenium do it for free. Like me and others, well, contribute to the project, but it's difficult to fix a given release date with these conditions. So Selenium 5 is on the road. You can check the milestone in the GitHub repository, but well, eventually it will happen. But that doesn't mean that there are no features that are already available in this version 4.25. So today I'm going to present some of the most relevant features planned for Selenium 5, which are already available in Selenium 4. So again, what is not Selenium? Yeah, maybe many people think that Selenium is a testing framework. For me, Selenium is not a testing framework itself. And for me, Selenium is not even a testing library, right? So a couple of questions here. You can say, well, but I can do testing with Selenium. Well, of course, you can do testing for Selenium, but typically you're going to need different stuff, not only Selenium, but other tools. A second question can be, what's the difference between a library and a framework? Because we developers use all the time libraries and framework, but I'm not very convinced that we have always the knowledge about the difference between them. And again, maybe because I'm a professor, I am going to give you my own perspective on the difference between library and framework. For me, library, it's a collection of code that we developers use using an API to solve a given problem. So Selenium is a browser automation library because we use Selenium to automate browsers, typically for testing, but other use cases are also possible. Then, what's a framework? A framework, it's a library, right? So it's a collection of code we use to solve a problem, but provides some foundation we should meet. We should embody some abstract design when using a framework. So typically, a framework is more complete, more comprehensive than a library. To illustrate the difference between these two tools, library and framework, I use an analogy using a bottle of paint. A bottle of paint is going to represent the library, and the software we are developing is going to be a drawing we do, right? So with a library, we are free to select the canvas we want and select the colors and do our painting. That is the software we are developing with a library. We are free to use it as the way we want. When using a framework, we have the same bottle of paint. We can paint with the different colors as well, because it's a library, but the framework comes with a frame, right? We should use when using this framework. So our software developed with a framework is going to be different, a similar shape, right? Maybe more beautiful, depending on your like or not, but it's more comprehensive, let's say. So that, for me, is the difference between library and framework. So again, Selenium is a browser automation library. And as I said, I think it's important to go deeper in the detail of that architecture to have a better understanding. Well, so we have the script using the Selenium API on the one hand. And of course, we're going to have the browser connecting to a web application under test, typically. And in between, we have something very relevant for Selenium, which is the driver, right? This piece is a binary file we use to communicate with the browser. For example, we need Chrome driver to communicate with Chrome, Gecko driver to communicate with Firefox. And in between, there is a native communication. Driver and browser talks a custom protocol that the browser bundle made. And the relevant part of Selenium architecture is in here, in the communication between the driver and the Selenium API. This is called nowadays the W3C WebDriver specification. It's a protocol based on JSON on HTTP that Selenium used to communicate with the driver. I believe this is one of the most important achievements of the Selenium project, because this is a standard, which means that browser vendors and implement drivers meet this WebDriver specification to do this in a standard way, right? So this is very cool. Standards is the way to do a way to work for all. But for the developers, for Selenium users, there is a strong requirement that we need to manage this driver by ourselves. And this management, I call it, it's the process of download this, set up, so this configuration, and very important, maintain in time these drivers, right? And this has been a problem for many years for Selenium users, as some of you probably know. This is how a test in Java using JUnit looks like in the old days. This could be something around Selenium 3, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And at that time, the Selenium documentation recommends you to download the Chrome driver, in this case, because we are using Chrome as a browser, and put a given property with the path, the absolute path of your Chrome drive in your hard drive. Yeah, that works, right? You download Chrome driver, the proper Chrome driver for your Chrome, you export the path, and it simply works. After that, you can use Selenium to, in this case, to make a test. But this is something that, well, it's a problem, right? Because you need to configure that path. This test only works in your machine, not in your side server, for example. And yeah, that's not the best way to start using Selenium, in my opinion. That's my opinion now, and that's my opinion like 10 years ago. And because of that problem, well, yeah, I'm going to go a bit deeper in the problem because, yeah, not only that you need to download this, because if you don't do once, OK. But the real problem is that browsers are evergreen, which means that they update to the next stable version automatically and silently for users. Let's see an example of this feature, because it's very appealing feature for developers, for end users, sorry, but not that very well for testers. Imagine you have Chrome 126 in your computer. You're a tester, so you get Chrome driver. That version is the one which works, and your test, Selenium test, is working now. OK. But time goes by, right? And eventually, your Chrome driver, well, your Chrome, sorry, goes to 127. But you still have this version of Chrome driver. In this case, you are lucky, and your tests continue working. But eventually, someday, your Chrome is going to update to the next version, this example, Chrome 128. And in this case, this Chrome driver you had, it's incompatible with Chrome. And that day, when you go to your office, you will discover your dashboard is red because this problem, this error. This version of Chrome driver only supports Chrome, in this case, version 126. Maybe you have faced this problem if you have managed your Chrome driver manually. So that's a real problem that happened in the past, but, well, it's a problem of the past, because 9 years ago, I created this tool, WebDriver Manager, which is Java, a Java library, which implemented what they call automated driver management. So internally, this tool discovers your browser version, downloads the Chrome driver version or the driver version you need for your browser, well, and that works, simply works. Very appealing, and yeah. With time, this tool became quite popular. In fact, was ported to other languages, JavaScript, Python, with the same name, by the way. They selected the same name. And yeah, this feature, this library is still maintained. I still, well, from time to time, release a new version, maintaining things, which is automated driver management and other features, not only that. If you want, you can check the documentation. And this is how a Selenium for test looks like. We don't have no more paths within the code, which is great. We have WebDriver Manager, and that simply works, in this case, for Java, right? But what is about the Selenium project? Because WebDriver Manager is a third-party library. I created because I thought it was useful, for free, by the way. But the Selenium project, at that time, well, they didn't care about this. They said that Selenium was not an all batteries included tool. But in 2021, they made a survey with their user, the Selenium project. The feature that the users wanted more was what they call batteries included. And I call this browser and driver automated management. Right? This is the result of that survey at that time. And this is where the paths of the Selenium project and mine merged together, because in 2022, well, because I was the one who created WebDriver Manager, now I become a Selenium committer in that year to implement this feature in the Selenium project. And well, because manager, this word was somehow well known in the Selenium community, I proposed to name this tool Selenium Manager. This is a tool we have now. It's a key ingredient on Selenium 5, but we already have this tool already available in Selenium 4. What's Selenium Manager? Selenium Manager is a CLI tool, right? It's implemented in Rust, by the way. Rust is an interesting language if you don't know. It's difficult at the beginning, but at the end, eventually you learn. And yeah, Selenium Manager, I have created this tool as a CLI tool, which means you interact with that using the shell. And why is that? Well, the idea is that the single Selenium Manager binary is used using the different language of Selenium, Java, JavaScript, Python, and so on. So what is happening now in Selenium 4? Each Selenium release is shipped with Selenium Manager, which means that each time we have a Selenium release, like the one we had this week, all of these bindings, all the implementation of Selenium, Java, JavaScript, Python, and so on, has included Selenium Manager. This CLI tool comes with each Selenium bindings release. So this is what a new Selenium file, let's say, although this is Selenium 4 yet, looks like. It's a Java test, as you can see, the unit 5, and there is no path about the cron driver binary thing. It's already included, built-in Selenium. You only need to make an instance of cron driver in this case, and internally, what is going to happen is Selenium Manager is going to detect your Chrome browser, is going to go to the cron driver repository, download the binary for you, make available for the test, and cache, because the next time will be cached and the performance will be great. So nowadays, the driver management problem, we can say that's a problem of the past. We don't have this problem anymore. We have Selenium Manager in the whole, not only Java, but all languages of Selenium implemented by default. But Selenium Manager is not only about drivers, and this is a very cool feature in my opinion. This is again another example using Firefox driver. We only changed from Chrome to Firefox, so we are using Firefox this time. But imagine that you don't have Firefox in your computer, right? That's something that in the old days it was a requirement. You need to install the browser you want to automate with Selenium in your computer. But nowadays, if that happens, Selenium Manager is going to save your test because it's going to download the browser for you, right? I am not going to do this in a test because, well, we don't have much time, but I recommend you to, if you want to, go to this repository. All the code I'm explaining today, it's in GitHub, it's open source. And I recommend you that, yeah, you can remove your Firefox from your computer and install it, and try to run this. And as I said, Selenium Manager is going to detect that you don't have Firefox, and it's going to connect to the Firefox repository, download, and make available for your test. This is available in Windows, Mac, and Linux for Chrome, Firefox, and Edge, right? So all of these combinations of browsers, you can rely on Selenium Manager to download the browsing for you. You don't have to do anything, but only to, think that Selenium Manager is going to resolve for you. Again, the browser is going to be stored in the cache, so next time will be available, so you save time. And yeah, in my opinion, that's a cool feature that it's already available in Selenium 4, right? And it's somehow a key ingredient of the upcoming Selenium 5. But also, not only about stable versions, because, yeah, I didn't mention that, but in this case, of course, Selenium Manager will download the current stable version of Firefox, whatever is the number now. But imagine you, and that's, I believe, a common use case, you want to make cross-browser testing with different browser versions, right? This could be tricky, at least so far. Maybe you can use a cloud solution for that, but nowadays it's straightforward. Only using the Selenium API to specify a browser version, for example, beta, also beta, not only a given version like 128 or whatever version, but also beta, dev, canary, stable, or ESR for Firefox. All of these combinations you can use with the Selenium API to set a browser version. And when you do that, again, Selenium Manager will try to find this browser beta in your computer. If it's not available, it's going to download and make available for your test. Right? So this, in my opinion, is a cool feature for cross-browser testing. Built-in, you don't need to do nothing, only to change your browser version in your computer, in your test, and Selenium Manager will manage for you. So again, if you didn't know about this feature, I recommend you to take a look, because maybe cross-browser testing is easier than ever with this Selenium feature. And yeah, that's about Selenium Manager. One more slide about Selenium Manager, because yeah, this is the way in which we use Selenium Manager through the bindings, right? Through Java, JavaScript, Python, which is, I suppose, is the most usual use case. But maybe you want to use Selenium Manager in a different way. And for that, I recommend you to take a look to the documentation. Right? It's a complete documentation with many features that are explained here. For example, that configuration is something that can be very important. Example of that, imagine you are behind a proxy in your company, and Selenium Manager is not able to connect to the online repositories. Well, in this case, you probably will need to put a proxy. And for that, yeah, you can use the Selenium API, or alternatively, you can use environments, variables, or a configuration file. Also, of course, as I said, it's a CLI tool, so you can use it standalone mode. If you, for example, need to download browser of drivers, I don't know, for example, for creating Docker images. So Selenium Manager is also available as a CLI tool that you can use for your own use case. So as I said, if you want, you can take a look to the documentation, which is very comprehensive. Now, this is about the first big group of the features of Selenium 5. And now let's move to the second big group, which is WebDriver BiDi. Right? That's the next big thing in browser automation, at least as I feel it. What is WebDriver BiDi? Well, BiDi comes from bidirectional, and it's a new specification in the W3 consortium. It's the evolution of WebDriver, right? For that, I explained with that detail the Selenium architecture, because we need to understand there is a protocol, WebDriver, which is based on HTTP. So it's request response, right? Now, this protocol is evolving to something called BiDi, which is a bidirectional protocol. So in what we call WebDriver Classic today, we have this schema. We have Selenium talking to the driver to HTTP. JSON messages sent by HTTP. And that is cool because, well, it's allowed distributed architecture, for example. But this request response architecture, as you probably know, has some limitations because, yeah, the server is not able to start the communication. It should always respond to requests. So in order to make this better, in a sense, this has evolved to a new specification, to a new protocol, which is this BiDi. BiDi, it's implemented using a WebSocket connection. So it's bidirectional. Both peers of the communication can start the communication. And the idea of WebDriver BiDi is to provide anything that is in WebDriver Classic, but with more advanced features. This, at this moment, it's a draft. It's a draft in the WC consortium. It's now being created. It's not completely available in Selenium 4, but we have some features already available, and that's what I'm going to explain. So, why we have done this by the specification? Well, as I said, this allows bidirectional communication, which is great, right? To some features, like, for example, event-driven features, when, for example, we need to know when the logs are generated. In the old days, we should ask from the driver to the browser each time we want to do that. Now, with event-driven architecture, each peer of the communication can start. So we can implement event-driven features that, for example, log gathering. Also, and that's important, BiDi is going to provide new features that are completely missing, completely unavailable in the WebDriver specification. For example, network interception is going to be completely new in BiDi. So, as I said, this is being implemented at this time. both in the WC consortium and also in the Selenium project. There are different modules. You can check in this documentation. There are 5 modules: browsing, action, scripting, logging, and network. All of this is happening now, will be available in Selenium 5, but nowadays we already have some features in Selenium 4. So I am going to show you a couple of examples of this new feature about BiDi. First, what we need to do to enable BiDi, because by default it's not enabled, right? By default we use WebDriver, but to enable BiDi is very simple. We simply use options, browser options, Chrome driver for Firefox driver or Edge driver, for example, and we need only to set this enable BiDi method. This is Java, but of course you have equivalent in other languages. And with that, we are telling to use this BiDi, this bidirectional communication between the Selenium and the browser. So, as I said, let's see a couple of features. First is about console log gathering. This is a snapshot of a web I created for my book about Selenium 2 years ago, and it's basically a web page that creates some different traits on the browser console. So far, this was impossible to do to gather with WebDriver Classic. There were tricks that could be used, but it was not the standard. And nowadays, we have the standard way, thanks to BiDi, right? And it's already available in the Selenium API. This is Java again, but it's being implemented in the REST bindings. And thanks to this, only this code, as usual, you have the code in GitHub, you can get easily all the console logging in your tests event-driven, right? You simply need to wait until the logs are generated, and you will get the get in your code. So this is already available in BiDi. And the second example I have here, it's about network interception. Well, this test is also working. It's very, very basic test, which allows to read the communication as HTTP level, right? So basically, we are assessing that the method and the response code it's right. But eventually, we will be able to use this feature, for example, for macking communication at HTTP level, which can be convenient for different use cases. In this case, this is work in progress, right? It's not completely, the network interception feature is not completely available, but the Selenium project is actively working on that, and it will be available, well, I don't know when, but soon. So this is about BiDi, the next big thing, in my opinion, in Selenium. Yeah, my last group of features, let's say, it's about the ecosystem, the Selenium ecosystem. Because one of the greatest achievements of Selenium is not being a library, a tool that is, well, very popular and very useful for people, but also it's somehow the foundation to others, to other tools, to other approaches, to other frameworks. And I want to divide this ecosystem in 3 parts. First, tools that are directly using Selenium for providing extra feature, for example, for testing. And now again, there is the difference between library and testing. Again, I said Selenium is a browser automation library, but there are frameworks, testing framework, complete testing framework built on the top of Selenium that provides comprehensive features for testing. And here there is 3 examples, but in that URL you have plenty of them. Selenite, it's a testing framework built on Selenium, but as a testing framework itself, right? So it provides many features that can be appealing for you, testers, in the Java language. The same happens with Selenium base. This is Python this time. You have a testing framework built on Selenium, and if you use Python to automate your browser, maybe you can take a look to Selenium base, which provides complete testing features for Selenium. And last of this is Watcher, which is Ruby, the same thing. A testing framework built on Selenium, which is available for you. Second part, it's about WebDriver. This protocol, right, which was pushed by the Selenium project, but nowadays it's a complete standard. There are different tools that have implemented this WebDriver protocol. And for example, we have 3 here. We have NetWatch, which is a JavaScript library, which we use for testing as well. Then we have something very interesting, which is Appium. Appium works also with the WebDriver specification, and Appium is for mobile, right? It's not only for web application, but also we can use this tool built, implementing this WebDriver specification, but this time for mobile application, which is cool. And lastly, we have WebDriver I/O, which combines both, because WebDriver I/O implements WebDriver protocol and allows you to drive browsers and mobile application as well, both. And lastly, and this is my final word today, we can start talking about the BiDi ecosystem, because, well, BiDi, it's in draft nowadays, it's been in work, but a very good thing, in my opinion, is that other projects different than Selenium, they are implementing BiDi. And we have two very, very important actors here. We have Puppeteer. Puppeteer, it's a library, right, which is being implemented by Google, right? So Puppeteer is starting using CDP, which is the cron the tool protocol. Nowadays, I think this is about 1 month ago, something like that, very, very early. Puppeteer starts using BiDi as the communication protocol between the Puppeteer API and the browser. And that's, in my opinion, a great news, because they are using the standard way, right? So, yeah, that's great in my opinion. But also we have Playwright. Playwright, it's a similar tool, but this time it's a testing framework being implemented by Microsoft. And Playwright is starting to implement the BiDi specification also for automating their browsers. So, well, this is a personal opinion, but I believe this is great, that now BiDi is being adopted to other tools different than Selenium, because that's the standard way. And yeah, that's all about my presentation. I want to thank you, everyone. And I don't know if there's a question now, but if not, I will be in the corner, in the speaking corner to anything you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boni. Thank you very much. Let's send him off of the stage with a big round of applause. Boni García.